This episode, we're talking to Ash Newman, the head of design and research at Perion Labs. He's an amazing designer. He's been in and out of agencies his entire career and has some amazing stories from all over the globe. So let's have a listen.
Yeah, it's a cool space, man.
Thanks, man.
Lots of space.
Yeah, I think we lucked out a little bit, to be honest.
Like, I mean, Australia's just fucked how it's like, you always have to be in the CBD. Everything revolves around the CBD. And of course, the CBD is super expensive.
Sure.
But if you're doing more kind of services like you can with you guys, it's like location's not as important and how central it is.
Yeah, sure. So is it in the show it off, like when you bring customers and clients in?
A little bit, but it was more on that like initial clients we're working with, most of them were CBD based. So the idea always was that, they would come over because a lot of the finance, they're all right there in the middle of the city. So they could like walk over. But the reality is it's like hardly anyone ever came to the office anyway. Like
post-COVID anyway.
Well, even that, it's like, so much of stuff doesn't really have to be done in person.
Yeah. When you're running a business that is trying to be digital always anyway, right? Like you're using modern tech, you're trying to be like at the forefront of technology. Sort of, it's almost counterintuitive to then have a big office space, right?
Yeah, but I miss the old days, man. All digital sucks. I'm tired of just Zoom calls for everything. It kind of gave you a bit of a break from the day being away from a screen. It's not like I'm saying I love being in meetings, but I don't know, just a bit lifeless, just staring at a screen and everything's just one different screen from another.
Because that was a big change for you recently, right? Where you were in Melbourne, you were away from your team. And like that took a bit of a toll, right?
Oh yeah, it sucked. It sucked from being like in Sydney with, a bunch of best friends, CBD, or going to the office, having a good time and stuff, and then being like, oh, okay, now I'm just like completely remote. There's no one there. And then kind of doing the thing where you pop around to different co-working spaces, trying to see like how much of your bleeding heart soul you can kind of suck from that to kind of make up for different things. Yeah. And, And from that, I guess I've been to quite a few of the different co-working spaces, and where we met at Framework was definitely like it was a good vibe because it was a smaller vibe. But like a lot of those places just feel like libraries, and like people don't really want to know you.
Yep. Well, I mean, interesting. So you mentioned Framework. We then also post-COVID, we had to shut down Framework, obviously, because if any industry was going to be ravaged by COVID, it was a place where all people come together in one place. Then starting another co-working space too soon after COVID, nobody was willing to sort of come back out of the place. But since then, I'm
sorry for not going into that.
No,
it was too far.
It was. And it was, we tried to do too many things at once. Like we tried to build, it was a gallery space, it was an art space, it was an event space, and then co-working. It was like we didn't just focus on. I mean, it's a whole conversation around brand and what you're trying to do with the business anyway. We're trying to do too many things all at once, but I guess that's a separate conversation. But the flowing from that going to, the Commons or going to Cubes or whatever all around the city, there's just like, it's taken such a long time for people to feel comfortable to get back in and do that, the desk bombing, walk up and shake hands with people that they maybe don't know or, say hello at the lunch table type deal. Like it just disappeared for 4 years.
And I think co-working has become awkward too in that like, you can scale up and down, but there's still a lot of teams like, what I'm in now where it's like you're not in there every day. So the cost of having a dedicated private space that is still only be utilized like 40, 50, 70%, it doesn't make great math. But the other option of like hot desking just kind of sucks. It's just, it can be good, it can be bad. I mean, that's just the general consensus of all the different types of spaces. But the Commons that like I'm out of now, I think is probably my favorite space that I've been in. But comparing that Commons to the CBD Sydney Commons, which coincidentally used to be like an enterprise business where I used to work in the same space like many, many moons ago, and it kind of brings back nightmares. But that sucks. The vibe is just completely different. It's like corporate and like there's no dogs around and it's just really, really busy and you got to kind of fight for the space and it's just not, it's not the same vibe.
So is it a certain type of person that needs to go to co-working, you think? Like,
human people that don't want to be lonely
and
get like depressed. It's hard though because like there's always a group of people that go to co-working and it's like, I'm going there because I just want to get out of the house. And then you got others that are going out and I want to meet people and make friends and stuff. But if you're not really in there every day and not necessarily like that good at making conversation or interrupting people, it can be kind of awkward also.
Yeah. There's a special type of person that's comfortable enough, but also cool enough to be able to like introduce themselves and not be a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of weirdos that are happy to do it, but like you still need to be nice and you want to be able to meet them and speak to them again.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like most of the people I've met through co-working spaces is really introductions to other people because a little bit can't be fucked with people, you know?
No, I agree. Yeah.
You know, it's just an awkward conversation and I don't like really want to hang around and drink that much. So like I miss out on a lot of that type of thing. But yeah.
That's what I reckon would have to be up there with one of the hardest things to do as a business owner is the shake the hands, the network. To do it well, I think it's the hardest thing to do as a business owner. Like I think we're both pretty personable people and you can have a great conversation with people, but to take it that next step into business, like it's a hard transition.
Yeah. And I find it like any type of event or networking event, it's you've got it once you're in the zone, it's kind of like, okay, you can do it. Same as like being at trade shows and things like that when you kind of switch into that mode. But it is so painful, like, you know, willing yourself up to this complete stranger and then having to be like, oh, what do you do here? And you're actually like, I literally do not give a fuck. I just don't care. Yeah. But then you always find something that's interesting and try and get some conversation going. But yeah, it's awkward though, because especially as a service provider, like it's different when you go in as a service provider. Is the minute you say like, oh, I'm from an agency and we do this and this, it's like they are anticipating the sale. So they switch off. It's very different from being like, oh, I'm at this place, we're looking for partners, and it's a bit more of an open door. Yeah.
Yeah. And the sort of the not pretentiousness, but like everyone's there to network. And like, you know, people throw around the ideas of, you know, make friends first and be friendly with people and everything. But it's just like, but at the core of it, like you're making friends with these people so you can get into business. Like, I feel like the people that can recognize that are much easier to deal with in those type of scenarios.
Yeah.
Because you're there and you're like, okay, that's actually sort of transition back to when I was in New York working for a period of time. Like everyone's on that wavelength. Everyone's there to, you know, make money with everyone. It's like such an easy thing to network. You shake a hand and you're like, how are we working together? What are we doing? There's no like fluff of, you know, you might not even know if you like them or not. Like you're just straight to the point, which I think is too far the other way. But yeah, I always find that interesting. So do you think that like partnering with people that have those skills is an important thing for you, like building We Discover? You think like partnering with somebody like Scott was an important sort of...
Well, me and Scott were both like kind of awkward people.
Yeah, sure.
We don't necessarily really enjoy that part of it that much. It's good having like somebody when you're kind of not alone and doing that stuff. But it's been different. It's like during that time we had hired and tried different people in kind of sales roles to ideally do more of that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're kind of looking at design and being quite specialized, it's hard to maintain a genuine conversation if you don't really have experience on the tools, because it just leans more into that sales conversation, which I think to your point is like Americans are much more used to the sales conversation. There's a lot more competition, a lot more agencies. You're just exposed to that a lot more. And it's almost like, hey, let's have this conversation so you understand, you know, like financially my backing and what I'm looking for, and you do that. So we kind of get that aside, and then we can have a conversation now about like the realities and what's going on where, yeah, I just find like the attitude in Australia of the minute they kind of know you're from agency and stuff, it is a turn off, right? It's actually quite hard as kind of coming from an agency to kind of do the cold reach, because it's just like, oh yeah, where's the PDF coming with the price terms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You know, the Australians aren't as happy to be sold to as the US.
Do you think that there's a bit of a distaste for bigger agents? Like, is there a preference to smaller agencies? I guess.
Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. Like, for a smaller business or a startup, there's a huge distaste to bigger agencies, because in general sense, a big agency is really only really suited to work with big companies, their processes and just the cost, right? So a smaller business or a startup looking at a smaller agency, yeah, I mean, for starters, they probably can afford it, but are they going to be able to move at the pace that they need? I think that the thing you're looking for as a startup or any business is unless you've got really, large deep pockets, when you can go for the really established agencies that's got the track record, you're going to pay a full premium for it. They can scale with it. Is looking for that agency they've got good work, but they're still hungry to hit that next thing. Like they're on a trajectory and they're looking for people that that they're going to put in more than like what your standard agency is going to get, because the opportunity is valuable for them. And that's kind of what, I think for like We Discover and going in, when they work with myself and the team, and, you start to realize actually there's actually kind of quite passionate people. They actually give a shit, and it's quite genuine. So, you tend to build a bit more relationship, and just because of that, they tend to get more out of the experience. They're going to get a bit more hours. They're going to get more love and attention to it, where everything's kind of happy like that with larger agencies. And you kind of come in and realize, I thought we had big money, but actually we're small compared to some of, the big top tier brands that you're coming in, and you don't really quite get that service.
So what's the main, what would be the main plus for going with big agency? Do you think it's just in the like trust and the you're going to get a certain result?
Yeah, I think it's like the baseline on quality and how well they can distribute, and the track record of what you want to rinse and repeat. But the bigger they are and the better they do it, obviously just the more cost you've got involved into it. But I think it's just a different mindset of where you'd be at with different products. So, the last kind of 10 years is predominantly being spent largely with a lot of startups, working with bigger brands too. But the type of mindset of experimentation, fail fast, and that type of thing it's really hard for a big agency to do it, because it's really, really hard for a large agency to kind of quote and price and plan out a project that's going to have all of these changes, right? It's hard to guarantee an outcome if you don't quite know what the outcome's going to be at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And so that's where the cost is attached to, right? Like that, we're going to give you this outcome.
Yeah. So like if you're locked in, you know what you've got to do, and you want to spend, it makes sense to go with a big agency that can do it, and importantly be able to scale if the thing goes on. Because the last thing you want to do is be working with a small agency when you've got a real chance of a product going big. But in order to support, the marketing or the build needs of that, the agency is not going to be able to do it. And you're going to be like literally in the middle of something, going back to square one, trying to find a new agency that has no context. So there's a little bit of that chicken and egg of like, do you engage with the bigger agency first, or you work with a smaller one? You might be able to grow with them. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the individual people that you work with at an agency. Like even if it's a big agency or small agency, like if the people that you're working with and going back and forth with to try and make something succeed, you don't like them, there's a good chance like it's not going to work, because you just don't want to fucking work with them.
How much emphasis do you think there is in the ideas and the strategy with bigger agencies? Like it seems to always be sort of part and parcel with the big price tag.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like when we're talking about big ideas, I mean, like I come from more of a product background, right? Like I'm involved in product marketing, but I'm much more focused when we're talking about agencies on a product agency. But I have been exposed to quite a bit of activity on like larger agency on the marketing side. And to quote Brandon, the CMO at Perion, who he says, for me, it's just like, it's the hook and the look. So, like I think there's this idea that the magic that you come up with this hook and this magic idea is that it somehow only a big agency can do it, And I think there's a lot of the kind of the mystique that agencies want to have. That's like, we're going to come up with the hook that no one else is going to do. It's magic, but at the end of the day, it has to be really simple. And it's about understanding, the customers, what their problems are, and how to frame it and how to gain interest to it. And I think that's not necessarily something that always comes from a big team. It can come from really, small teams or individuals if they're really creative and they understand the context of what they're trying to achieve. But, there is a lot of mystique in big agency of like, somehow we've got this special sauce, and it's like, you peel it back to it, and it's like, well, what's really there? I mean, it's like good process and things, but like the magic comes from people at the end of the day.
Yeah, and how important is sort of research to all of that? Like I know that that's predominantly your role now at Perion and XP is around user research.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the hats that I'm wearing now, and I'm almost in like this race to see well, in startup, it's like, how many hats can you wear a day until you have a mental breakdown? But, the background in product and product design and really reluctantly going into research, and research being something that, we discover we were really heavy into that at the start and peeled off. I was exposed and put into a lot of that stuff that I really didn't really want to, but it really ended up kind of becoming something that became a lot more useful. But I think that it's like, what constitutes research? I think in marketing, there's a lot of research is more kind of demographic, kind of basic on what you're kind of targeting on AdWords and things, executional stuff. And product, research tends to lean into more kind of behavioral stuff. And there's a bit of a divide in kind of like product research and marketing research, and how do you validate and kind of score brand versus kind of products and problems and things. And I'm no expert into the marketing kind of side of it. But the more that you can understand on like scratching below the surface on behavioral things and the reactions to problems, the more interesting and compelling a narrative you can build in the marketing side, for sure. And I think kind of one of the challenges of being in startup space is, when you look at enterprise and bigger business, like product and marketing are always so bucketed, right? It's like, product are responsible for what they do, and that kind of goes over the fence. Marketing do what they do. Is there any kind of sharing or whatever? But when you're an early stage startup, it's like the product, the marketing, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you're kind of trying to figure out, by throwing a lot of shit at the wall, it's like, what sticks, and trying to find the best places that, have the best opportunity of things to succeed. With product and marketing inside of a startup, is they really have to work in tandem. So in enterprise, they're often segregated, right? Two buckets of people, they barely talk to each other or whatever. But, when we're still trying to figure out what this product is, it's like, oh, what are the features, understanding the users, but it's also like figuring out in the market of like, well, where is there opportunity? Where do we resonate with customers? Where can we build partnerships where, we can build features that help us get into that. Yeah. So it's like part of the growth strategy and exploration involving marketing to kind of like push through like the ice barrier to find things as well. Not necessarily just, oh, suddenly we've found like this product that's got an incredible product market fit, and then you're going to amplify that. It's really part of the exploration at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there's a huge overlap between the product research and marketing research, but marketing research is a little bit harder because it's a little bit more symbolic, and it's the semiotics of the language and whatnot, right? Like, it's harder to sort of gauge how people feel about a thing without directly asking them. Or, you can see with comments and whatnot, but that's sort of a little bit different. You're guessing a little bit in that regard. But interestingly, so product that we've just worked on together, a giveaway gaming platform with a giveaway element to it, and there's been a bunch of research gone into it. I've found some really interesting insights from a content point of view from your product research, from the website analysis or however you've gone about it. Any of the feedback that's sort of given, it just shapes how you they might not directly be commenting on the content itself, but the overall sort of feeling and sentiment. You go, okay, well, we've missed the mark a little bit here, we've missed the mark a little bit there. So there's certainly overlap. From a recent example.
I like going into period, and kind of one of the main things that I'm kind of trying to do is just get like customer voice, right? Like, more people can hear what the customer's saying. It kind of sounds quite cliche, but like a lot of organizations, especially in startups, they're not talking to customers, so they don't quite know what are people fucking thinking about this product, right? So getting the earlier steps into like unmoderated testing, which is super simple to do, right? It's like, use different platforms, you basically pay users, and then narrate their experience on landing into products. It's a lot quicker and cheaper than doing like one-on-one sessions like we're talking now.
Or groups or whatnot.
But you just hear things that you didn't realize, and a lot of things you just kind of click to it, but you also kind of need to get a business across the sentiment of things. So, and I shared it with you that we had this, it was an incredible video of somebody that just despised this product. I've never done something like this where, you know, you actually came out with an enemy at the end of it?
Yeah, he hated it.
He hated it.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just I disliked it, but he's like, you're a bad people.
Yeah.
And, you know, making sure that like more people in the company don't just hear the synthesis of someone saying that, but actually listen to it. And can empathize with where they're coming through. But the way, you know, like that kind of, which is really more kind of like conversion and a bit more on the product side, kind of relayed back into marketing, and what you guys were doing on the video was coming through of like, you know, taking a stab at this website. No one really knew exactly what it was. And the user's like, well, what are you asking me to do? It's just like this spray of features and stuff that's all over the place.
Yeah.
And you know, the product team were like, well, like what's the ask? What's like the binary question of yes or no? And it was, we were like, well, what's the simplest challenge that you have to do on the platform in gaming? And, you know, what's the reward? So it was this idea of, can you get 5 kills in Fortnite within a day for a chance to win a PS4, which is fundamentally what the product comes down to, outside of all of the features, all the bells and whistles. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to use the product. It's not going to be for you. So, you know, taking that and then doing, you know, a set of kind of creatives and stuff that you know, you execute and do the videos on, you know, and then we run that through to, you know, using Reloom to generate landing pages. So they've got like an AI tool where it's like all of these Webflow modules. It creates the wireframes, the copy, whatever. Dump that into Webflow. You know, it takes like hours to create these kind of bespoke landing pages for this funnel.
Yeah.
You know, and that little bit of insight around, you know, how to frame that basically upped all the conversions of that and was the best performing, right, in terms of messaging to come through. So,
and it gives you an opportunity to test quicker. Right?
Yeah, but just, and Webflow's been awesome. So like, it's the first time I've really got stuck in. Like I've used Webflow, edit bits and pieces of it, but to go like, fuck it, let's actually own it on Webflow. Because, you know, we've got a decent dev team at Perion, and it is just such a waste of their time to be like working on front end web stuff instead of in the product. Yeah. So being able to take that completely off their hands, you know, frees them up heaps, but also like not really being that snazzy with it, like just being able to use Reloom to, you know, create bespoke landing pages, skin that in, do the copy, you know, feeding in the insights from that unmoderated testing loop and then deploying ads and stuff. Like, yeah, it's just that kind of really rapid experimentation that makes sense inside of that marketing to see, you know, comparing different messaging and conversion rates and costs to start steering on like what type of narratives resonate.
So how do you balance the speed of execution, which is like one of your superpowers, and making a good choice?
Well, the goal at the end of the day is not necessarily to go fast. It's to get to a level of quality, you know, that we want to get to, and if it can be done fast, we'll do it fast. But I think when you're looking at you know, the design of a lot of these things, the reality is like, you know, you get in a bit of a debate with people on what best practice means. Like for me, best practice means like literally just copying people at this point. Something has been copied so much and it works so well that instead of calling it copying, we just call it best practice because everyone's copying everyone. Yeah. And you don't need to go to the extent we did with like the original site of, you know, we're doing Figma, we're doing 3 breakpoints, our own bespoke library, all these animation elements and things. And then that's going to, you know, our devs, and we're splitting that with an offshore dev team. And then we're doing like QA on that. And then we're building a prismatic CMS system, and you just kind of locked, you can't change it. It's like, fuck me, that's a lot of work to get a basic product lander, which basically all the modules look the same. And all we're really testing is copy. It just needs to look good enough. And same with like the creative. It's like, doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, really, really crazy stuff as long as the messaging's clear. And as long as the level of good enough is somewhat consistent in what you're experimenting with, then you can A/B test that stuff. The problem would be if you go, oh, for this one, we're going to put heaps of effort into the design and messaging. And this other messaging one, we're going to do the shit design, you know? Yeah. It's like, it's a bit of a tailored eye. And I've always gotten a lot of shit about this, about like the amount of templates and stuff I use. Like good design is like, it's about the eye as much. It's like knowing the good templates to use, like Reloom and, you know, finding, you know, being able to use AI and stuff in ways that don't look too cheesy, but you know, PSD mockups, LS graphics, it's like the premium. That's what you got to pay for the good mockups, man. That's one thing I'll say out there to designers is don't cheap out on the mockups, man. It makes a big difference.
I love the straight down the barrel too. I completely agree with that sentiment that like sometimes it doesn't need to be the big thing. It doesn't need to be the big agency full campaign idea. Like it just needs to be, hey, we think this might be wrong. Let's just quickly spin up a thing within 20 minutes and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Like that's going to give you so much better insights into what you're doing rather than postulating for 40 hours and pay a big bill.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a very different service for where a business is at.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about brand and brand impact and, you know, long tail of, you know, brands like Coca-Cola and it's super hard to track ROI on like how things might be going in brand impact.
A brand presence. Yeah.
That tends to be more of the nature of big agency. But when you're talking about like exactly what you're saying of like small execution to learning to do it, it does become hard to do that with, I mean, we've been able to do it with you guys, but like with other agencies because the agencies tend to be incentivized to get the biggest thing they can, right? You know, it's hard to get businesses that you can trust and be like, look, we've got this much money. Like, let's figure out a way to kind of get the best learnings we can from that.
Yeah, but because I think that the way that companies need to work, especially is working across the sort of entrepreneurial space, startup space, mainly in tech and fintech, it's like I think that the big thing that they're missing and getting taken advantage of, I think, in a lot from bigger agencies or more, maybe not bigger agencies the right way, but more sort of traditionally minded agencies, is this like commitment to the one campaign, which is forever and a day been the thing, right? Like you commit to like, this is how we're going to do it. And that might not be that you create one piece of collateral. It might be that you make 1,000, right? But they all have the same sort of messaging or whatnot. Like they need to move quick. There's like, if you're not moving quick, there's someone else moving quicker. You know, like you've got to keep up. And I know this. We started Storytale a couple of years ago. And we're just too slow. We didn't have enough development support. We didn't have enough marketing support. We didn't have enough sales support, whatever. We just were slow. And then all of a sudden, the key features in the product that we were building was on all of the competitors. And you're like, now you don't have a USP. There's no point of difference.
It's a weird relationship with early stage product in that, you know, whether you kind of adhere to the lean UX method and all this. I mean, it's understood. It's like, you know, like the quicker you can learn, you know, the faster you can iterate and, you know, fail fast, all of that type of method. And traditionally agencies, especially larger agencies, but it's a weird position to be in as like a paid service provider that's ultimately saying that they're going to fail on something.
Right.
And you know, you kind of have to set that expectation really clear early on. You know, you're not going to blow 20 grand on a campaign and it's like, well, didn't heck, yeah, but we got some learnings out of it. You know, so I know that's kind of the point right now. It's like, you know, and I think it's like, you know, getting advice with agencies on how to spend money to get the best learnings is really it's onto the individuals to come in. And I get that it's hard and especially when you move in with people that you don't know, people don't particularly really like coming in and saying budgets. They like coming in and saying, this is exactly what we want. Tell me the price. And then I'm going to go shop around and get it down. Rather than coming in and go, well, we've got this to spend and this is what we're working for. What do you suggest would be the best way to execute X, Y, Z and provide back the learnings? And that type of kind of honest conversation, it's hard to have that. It's hard to get that. And, you know, it is as much as we would try, especially with, you know, a lot of the clients that we discovered, it's hard. It's just hard for people to do that, right?
Yeah,
they just want what they believe is the best for the cheapest price they can get it.
Yeah. So, how do you think companies can get that internally? Get those skills? Like, it's hard to go and hire the big senior whatevers, right? Developers, designers, copywriters, whatever it is in whatever sort of place. Because they're probably snagged up, right? Like probably have a great job somewhere.
Yeah.
Like how do you find them in the market? And two, what are the sort of things that they need, do you think, to be?
Well, I think you need people that are, well, Jesus.
It's a loaded question.
It's a fucking loaded question. And, you know, I look at, like I refer to my friend in Joe to get hired at Parent, work together. Friend of We Discover, a really great guy, and kind of the difference there is like, yeah, you need a go-getter, all of the kind of buzzwords and things, but you need somebody that's just experienced enough across enough things on the executional level to understand the context and scope of what price and time means. We get people that come from too big of an organization, or they've delegated too much. They don't really have the true understanding of those measures of time and cost and learning, right? So, trying to get people that, don't sit too high above and like some kind of cloud and expect other people to do it, but have worked closely enough, either doing it themselves or working with agencies to really understand, is it good value? When is the value worth doing it? And when is it worth just doing it internally? You can only really get that from a lot of executional experience.
Yeah, being around enough projects to see what it happens and how it happens.
Yeah. And I think like, especially like ex-agency people are really great too, because and not if you're from a big agency that moves really slow and does bad work, but like the 7 years that We Discovered was like how fucking fast can you do it? It's like, the faster you can work, the more work that you can take on. And we're not always working with huge budgets. It's like being really cost focused and kind of understanding that. And as much as we relay that to the clients, it really builds you in a place there where you're very, you're always thinking cost effective, time effective in the back of your head.
Yeah. And there's a big thing about impact, right? Like bringing somebody in that's going to have an immediate impact in some way. It might be on the team. It might just be on, the work ethic. Jump behind this person because they work super hard. Like that's an underrated skill, right?
The ability to crack the whip a bit without pissing people off is like vital. Like you're never going to have, it's very hard to have a team when you have like maybe like more than 2 or 3 people where it's self-forming that everyone's working fast. Part of that is like you'll always get peaks and troughs and people can burn out a bit. But, when you start to grow the team a bit more and conversations start getting broken, information isn't as shared as communally. It's in Miro, it's on Confluence here. There's so much kind of more breakdown on things. And you kind of just need that person that's really in there. And they exist in different forms. They can be designers, it can be product owners, it can be like CPO, CMO, CEO. But, is able to kind of just crack the whip and be honest of going, this is fucking taking too long. We need to solve for this without really pointing fingers at people. Yeah. Super important to be able to just have that kind of that honesty. Sure. And again, that comes down to like having seen this operate in other places where you can be more efficient.
Do you think there's been a shift in that from a generational point of view to like younger people being able to sort of crack the whip a bit? I know that I've experienced that in that it's it's a little bit more difficult to crack the whip. Well, I shouldn't say it's more difficult. You have to go about it differently. Like it's not just hey, time to pull up your socks, time to do the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm old, but I'm not like boomer old.
No, but I mean, I'm younger than you and I've experienced it, right? Like,
yeah. Well, it's I don't know. I think that you're right. Is that like you have to be not more precious, but more empathetic with people, because the reality is people have options. You're not in a job here working salary, man. You're going to be here for like 25 years or something. So and plus you want to treat people well and keep a culture good and happy, and that's much more important than I think it was a while ago, where keeping a culture good. I mean, people didn't even talk about cultures and things at work. Now it's like a big reason why you go and move somewhere. So yeah, you've got to be like not an absolute dickhead about it.
Sure.
Nothing is going to make people hate you more than being that person that's like, we just need to do this faster, and not actually bring any solutions, and not how to kind of make light of situations and bring more to the table than just being a dick.
Exactly. Like I don't think there should be a barrier to feedback or to for people to be able to have an opinion on what you're doing, as long as it comes from the right place, right? Like if everyone's there to try and do good work and have integrity about what they're doing, like it should come from the right place. It's different if you're like, oh, I don't like you, Ash, I'm just going to go and tell you your design is shit. That's different, right? But
that kind of culture thing of, I mean, like agency exposes you to a lot of different businesses, a lot of different cultures. I've worked in big and small agencies and enterprise in the past as well, and the thing that I look back at different agencies at the points when they were kind of at their peaks and they go through troughs and stuff too, is there seems to be this kind of moment, especially in product, where the team's going really well because the people are gelling in a way that it's really hard to kind of like put your finger on it. It's all kind of things that are in between. But a big part of it, a big part that I've always leaned into with that culture and especially in product is it's like comedy. So being funny and making fun of the people that are around you. I actually take it quite seriously in terms of a philosophy is because I think in a work culture, you really only have two routes. Is you offend no one and then you end up with a corporate culture where no one can say anything, or you are willing to offend and go out of your way to offend everyone, but just a little bit, and make sure that they understand that that's not coming from a hateful place.
Yeah.
Because if you kind of break that down and can get like jokes and you can make fun of each other a little bit, you're constantly softening each other up to how to take criticisms.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about product and ideas and competing ideas, it's conflict on different levels. And if you're in this culture where you're kind of coddled and you're too scared to say anything, you don't challenge the ideas and things just get through, right?
Yeah. Well, it was a big learnings for me, like in co-working space, like we mentioned before, you sitting directly behind me, I'd be working on something. You'd look over my shoulder and you'd say, that's shit. Like what you are doing right now is not good. But it wouldn't end there. You'd say, what are you trying to do? How can we do it?
And it was just
that's the difference, right?
It was just you on FaceTime doing your own thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's like, that was a huge thing for me, being like, hey, no, this is actually really, really good for me to be able to learn. And still do it now, right? Send you images all the time of designs or whatnot that I'm doing as a, hey, am I on the right track? As a knowing that, like, I know that I can design a little bit, but I'm not a designer and there's a difference between, but okay, am I on the right path here? What am I doing here? And being open to that feedback in a way that's not resentful, right?
Yeah. And as a designer, like it's exactly the same sometimes it's hard to find that person. There's always someone in an agency that kind of acts like that for you, where what you want is just that person next to you that you just go, oh, look at that. No context. And they go, change that and that because of this. And it's like, thank you. That's what I mean. The problem is it's like, just you need to make sure that's the right person, because it's like, they're not just giving you shitty advice, but having that.
Or advice for the sake of it.
That kind of thing where it's like, they can tell you exactly what sticks out for low hanging fruit, the minimal thing of feedback, and get that. It's so valuable. But a lot of people get very, and I do too, when you go to like, depending on the client and how it's been presented, like critique is not particularly fun. And a lot of that is due to just how people are giving critique of like, it's not good enough. I don't hate this, rather than like a designer is still like a person. It's like you have to work with them. Like I'm the same for editing it. I'm sure it's like, hey, this is what we want to achieve. I feel like a bit more feel like this, rather than kind of like, it's wrong, it's not good enough, that type of thing. Yeah.
Well, so I want to play a little game with you.
Okay.
Ash. Going to try a segment called Guess the Brand.
Yep.
So it's going to be, there's two parts. So first part, I'm going to give you some taglines of Australian companies or global companies, but you should know them. To see, one, firstly, I want to see, do you know them? Two, how important is a tagline? Because if you have one and you've used it across stuff and it doesn't resonate and it doesn't work, what's the point of it? And then I'm going to play a little jingle. I've made a little mashup of some brands, jingles.
So this is Know Your Brand or something?
Guess the brand.
Guess the brand.
Guess the brand, yeah. So I'm going to start off with a couple of taglines and see if you can guess them. So first one should be easy. You should get this. The happiest place on earth.
The happiest place on earth. Isn't it McDonald's?
That's Disneyland. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Right. Happiest place. Oh, fuck, I should know that one.
Disney fiend. First one.
That's my bad.
Go back to the start. What about challenge everything?
Challenge everything.
Yeah. Or it's in the game.
Oh, that's EA.
EA. So they have their EA games, which is challenge everything.
Really?
And then they have it's in the game, which is
I haven't
EA
seen
Sports.
challenge. It's in the game.
They're almost the same. It's just one slightly more high pitch and says challenge everything. Like they're very, very similar.
Okay.
Yeah. live in your world, play in ours.
Live in your world, play in ours.
Yeah. I've never seen this in actual marketing, which is interesting when I Googled like, top 50 taglines for this. This was like top 10.
Play in ours. I mean, it makes me think it's like a video game. There's somewhere inside of the video game. Sony or Roblox.
PlayStation.
Okay, yeah,
PlayStation. Yeah.
Well, it's not bad then if I can guess for it, right?
Yeah. And then this one, I think so this is 2018. Not a rebrand per se, but they did a new campaign, and this was the tagline for it. Tastes like Australia.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a bit funky, right? And it's a bit out of context as well.
Just like cigarette smoking, a little bit racist. What? Say it again.
Tastes like Australia.
Tastes like Australia. Like ketchup or barbecue sauce.
Vegemite.
Oh, barbecue sauce, like if you distilled it down.
The same thing. Yeah, maybe not quite. So I find that this is interesting in that like it's in the game. Like you know that from playing games or whatnot. But like taglines, like how often do you actually like remember it for the tagline out of context?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thinking at the Disney one, it's like, yeah, of course I've heard that said. I didn't know that was their like official tagline.
I'm pretty sure it's on like like the branding and stuff all around the thing. Anyway,
I wouldn't hire me to do brand work for you. Product designer.
So this one, bit of fun here. Okay. I'm going to play. So there's 4 brands in this audio. I'm going to play it once, see if you can guess them all.
Okay.
Lowest prices are just the beginning.
It's Coles.
Makes cleaning oh so easy. It's tough on all things greasy.
Oh, okay. It's Coles, and then it's the start of like, it's either the start of like a movie or a DVD thing when the thing's coming in on screen. And then the other one, I forget, it's a cleaning product. It's like, it's so squeezy. It's been more cheesy. Mr. Shine or something like that.
Close.
And then the legendary, the one, the only, that's Pimp My Ride.
Pimp My Ride, which we'll get to in a minute. So you were sort of close, but not really. So first one's Bunnings.
Oh, it's Bunnings. Fuck.
Opening middle one was the PlayStation 2 loading screen when you turn the PlayStation 2.
Yes.
Then it's Ajax Spray and White.
Look, I claim I didn't grow up in Australia. Bunnings was new for me.
Yeah.
I reached it in later life.
Mm-hmm. Which all these they were TVCs, right? They were television communals, television commercials that we would have heard them. Ajax Spray and White.
Ajax, yep.
And then the one and only Pimp My Ride, which you were a big fan of. Did you? So you were a designer at Pimp My Ride, right?
Well, West Coast Customs, which was the founding of that show and the company behind all of the cars, was my client before they hit it big. So I landed them when I was very young, about 18. It was the one and only cold call I made in my life when I was in California.
Wow.
Spoke to Ryan, went down there, and kind of the next thing was like 7 years of becoming very close with Ryan and being basically a photographer, designer, website. So my job role was creative media director. But yeah, I kind of rode that right from just before they hit Pimp My Ride through the MTV days, the gap there. Then they went into Discovery Channel and different TV shows, and then kind of decided, it's time to kind of like do something else.
What a crazy first job though.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was crazy considering of where I'd come from as well. So like I grew up in New Zealand, and I was doing these trips to the US when I was like 18, 19. I left school, done some art stuff, realized I didn't like art. And then all of a sudden I was kind of like thrown in the thick of it with, at the time it was the number one show on MTV, and the MTV engine was just fascinating. Like to go to being the number one show on TV and what kind of comes with that of, a lot of people that I knew before were like becoming quite famous, and just people coming into the business all the time and the amount of advertising and selling kind of going on through the show. But, it was just fun because I became like pretty close with Ryan, who owns it, and I would stay with him when I go over there and just kind of get exposed to a lot of weird stuff at a very young age of like being like on the streets in kind of Compton and going like through the ghetto and stuff. And then would drop off cars to Shaq at like after like his games, they come on the private plane and dropping them off on like the back of Shaq's house. And I just remember that Ryan was telling me that he's like, I was in Shaq's house. I went to use the bathroom, and he's like, and there's a massive turd in there. And then Shaq's like, don't flush it. He's like, look how big it is. And he was just savoring this turd in there because it was so big.
Why is that? That just feels like that's a Shaquille O'Neal thing to do.
Yeah. You can imagine how big that would be.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Girthy.
Huge.
And rocking in there.
That's funny, though, that one of your main takeaways of 7 years of working on West Coast Customs is
it's kind of like that stuff and a whole bunch of stuff that had to be like settled in private lawsuits so it didn't get out. Yeah. It was a super chaotic place, but like a lot of fun.
What's you were on an episode, right?
I'm on a couple episodes, like in the back, like looking like a total dork. Like whoa, reveal, it's a car.
Oh, what an experience that would have been, as opposed to like the normal first job that people will get is probably something using Canva, right? Like in today's world. You go in there and you make some social media assets on Canva. That's probably your first design job.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of like I started freelancing basically at 18 and that was really like, they were like my second client. First client too was like played inline hockey, play ice hockey now. And I think I always recommend to people to get out there is like, you've got a much better chance of landing to work with a client that you want and you appreciate and you want to be doing stuff if you give them an offer they can't refuse. So I will do X, Y, Z for nothing or for basically nothing. You show them what you can do what you can to try and get in the door. And that's what I've done with that company. And then that subsequently led to them flying me out to Vegas. And then when I was in Vegas, I met some other people and then I met the people that said, you should call this place. They do cars and they need a website. But all of that kind of opportunity stuff really didn't come from being a good designer at all. It was just a super dumb and young. And I was like, something in the back of my head was like, yeah, I think the more weirder the situations that you can get into outside of your comfort zone is probably a good thing coming from like a pretty small town in New Zealand where there was like not a lot happening. It was kind of like quite happy to kind of push and go with the flow.
Would you do it again? If they called you up now and they said, "Hey, we're gonna reboot Pimp My Ride,"
would I do it again? I think I could do some work through it in a capacity, and probably in a different capacity. Like Brad, a really good friend of mine, really talented creative director, who was one of the creative director while I was at West Coast Custom. He's still kind of doing freelance with those guys on and off, and yeah, I've matured a lot that I could help the business a lot. But, it's just stuff that I kind of had to learn of going like really young into business, into like my expectations of what I want to get out of it. And also kind of getting really close with clients, becoming kind of friends and stuff. It's like maybe wasn't like the most professional approach for me at that time.
Yeah, because I find it interesting trying to think about how like those experiences relate to hiring people now. Like for me, obviously I'm not in a freelance position, but certainly in a position where I need to hire freelancers often or subcontract to, or, want to bring them in onto the team. And it's just like, as silly as it sounds, I think about sort of your position in that type of thing. It's just like, okay, somebody that's willing to put themselves out there, that's willing to take those risks. It might not be for me or for Stacked or whatnot, but like that's the type of person that you're going to be able to put in probably any position and they're going to just run straight at it, right? Like they don't necessarily have to be a good video editor or a good copywriter or a good designer or whatnot. They just have to want to be good at something in that sort of creative field.
Yeah, I think that hunger can be quite hard to quantify.
Well, I don't think you can teach it.
No, you can't teach it, but it's also kind of hard to always. I mean, I think it's easy to pick up on it, but like, in hiring designers and people come through, it becomes like really obvious who's hungry and who's not. And that's not really something that you often pick up if you're looking at like a LinkedIn record. LinkedIn's great for seeing, like, you can see trajectory of where people are going, but it's like, are they really hungry to do it? And it's crazy that like you can, when you're running an interview with someone, like the amount of times where really like that first 10 seconds of their energy and how they converse to you really kind of dominates just how they're going to be. It's like you kind of know instantly, is this person hungry for what they want to do or not? You may not, depending on what you need for the role, it may not have to be the best person to it, but if you're not hungry, you're not going to get better. Yeah. So you're either going to pay to get someone that's super hungry, or you're going to pay the premium to get someone that's been hungry and got to the place where they're really good at what they do.
And both are hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone wants them. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in, Ash.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thanks for having me. It's like driving out here, I realized I'd like never been like this side of the city. I was like, fuck,
over the bridge. Yeah.
No, but cool digs, man. Cool office.
Thanks for coming in. We'll I'll have to get you back in another time so we can talk about AI a little bit more. It's a topic we didn't get to today, but I know that you're an AI fiend.
Shameless.
Nah, thanks, mate.
All right. Thank you.